Welcome to Layout Teardown, where Ben and Brock explore the websites of the biggest publishers to unravel their ad layout strategies and their programmatic advertising techniques. In this episode, we're taking a look at Slickdeals.
Hello, and welcome to episode 5 of the Layout Teardown with myself, Ben.
And I'm Brock.
And we're going to be looking at the website Slickdeals. So we're doing Slickdeals today. It's interesting for a few reasons. It's a giant online coupon business. It's a community, and they write kind of financial content as well. And they've got a few different business models that they are working with. So they've got the coupons. Many of these are affiliate links back to the retailer, which is interesting. The second piece is they've got a highly valuable audience that is in market to purchase. And so they've got a few strategies to monetize that user base. And the third one is the programmatic ads, which is what we're interested in. And we're going to bring you through that as well. And they've got quite a sophisticated setup. So we will jump straight in and maybe talk about the business model, how they're probably looking at advertising first. So Brock, when you're looking at Slickdeals, what first comes to mind in those areas?
Yeah, it's very interesting to me. If you're a big, massive retailer, you're likely bricks and mortar.
Yeah.
You're likely, millions, billions of dollars coming through those channels. And when you see them make their transition over to digital, that's obviously happened over the last few years. We're still seeing quite a slow uptick in the deployment of programmatic. And they're very conservative about their brand, obviously.
Yeah.
And really trying to make sure that their core business streams are maintained and not affected by dodgy ads online. Now, I think Slickdeals actually comes from the other side of the spectrum. Mm-hmm. And you see that when you first launch into the site, where they are a community. There are people interacting with each other online. My guess is they don't have 100 stores around the US.
Yeah.
And therefore, they're able to be a bit more free with how they approach their online and programmatic strategy. So initially, you see a large usage of ad units across the site. So as you scroll, you can see there a nice sidebar set up. And if you keep going, you've got the triple stacker, as they call it. It's the industry term, where they're keeping ad units in view. They're making sure that there's an opportunity to monetize people at all times, which is really, really nice. Pretty
smooth. It's definitely high ad density for a site like this, but they've done it in a pretty clean way. I think it's not overpowering. These units are in view for a huge amount of time, and we've got refresh on there as well.
So that's exactly the point. So when I was Googling coupons USA, I had Slickdeals and I had Bestbuy.com coming up. And you can see there's a vast difference in how they've approached monetizing their users.
Right.
I would say under the hood, there's probably a lot of similarities. But when you've got bricks and mortar and historical revenue, it's going to stop you from going full-blown programmatic.
Definitely. In terms of the numbers, so they've got a pretty serious amount of traffic. So they're doing about 60 million monthly visits. Strong average visit duration as well, about 4.5 minutes. Most of that traffic is coming from the US. So we work with a similar site in Australia called Ozbargain. Generally, these sites are kind of localized to a region. You've got deals that are normally localized as well, and those campaigns are kind of in region. Often you see one of these kind of mega sites or deal sites per geo, at least that's what we've kind of seen. And generally have extremely high CPMs. You've got users that are showing intent to purchase. They're actually looking at deals and coupons for things that are already being advertised in one way. Why not advertise something else to them? And there's high CTRs, and those users are valuable to an advertiser, basically.
It's a marketer's dream. You know that the people that are on this site are at the very pointy end of the funnel.
Yes, definitely. In terms of Programmatic Set Up then, so they've got header bidding running. They've got 7 partners in there at the moment. We had a look. From your look, it looked like they've built their own kind of Prebid setup in there.
That's right, yeah. Interesting enough, they've decided not to name it Prebid. They might be doing some obfuscation, but it's in there. They've got Amazon plugged in, which is really nice.
Yeah.
I would be shocked if they don't have a bit of Google Open Bidding there as well.
Yeah.
So a bit of server-side extra demand in the auction.
Yeah.
And just running through the Prebid stack, I think they've ticked off most of the baseline winners. Yeah. There you can see they've got cases like multi-size running, like obviously bidders across all sizes there as well.
Yeah.
I saw they've enabled bid caching, which is great.
Yeah.
As you mentioned with the sidebar, as it's refreshing, we might have unused bids that will come through from some of the header bidders that have been included. Obviously, Google might take a few, or you might lose out to another bidder in the auction. But if you keep it nice and contained, you're not holding bids forever, and there's some standards that you have to abide by, you can absolutely find a few extra percent just by holding onto a bid for 30 seconds and using it in a refresh auction.
Yeah, it's something we've tested a lot at Publift across lots of different publishers. Generally, we're seeing like a 3 to 5% uplift when we use it, or what is that?
Generally, of course, it is very much dependent on the volume of refresh, and these guys have done a good job because they're not necessarily a high volume site or what we would pigeonhole a publisher with lots and lots of dwell time.
Yeah,
we're talking minutes or even half an hour or so per page view. Where what they've done is by keeping content long form, as well on mobile to a different degree, but on desktop they've got the sidebar the whole time, which is always in view, as you say. Plenty of opportunity to refresh, times by 3 ads, and then two or three above. So a really good opportunity for secondary bidders to be able to pick up good high quality impressions.
Another thing we noticed was just on the timeout that they had for Prebid. So they've set that a little bit longer, which was interesting, I thought. What do you think the kind of reason? Normally it's around a second. They've set it at 3 seconds.
There's kind of 2 paths you can take, particularly at the scale that Slickdeals sits at today. Either you're going to be quick or you're going to be slow. And what I mean by that is, do you actually have a reason to be quick? If I'm thinking about how someone uses this site, they'll likely go through and put a search query, scrolling through, they'll be clicking back and forward out of the deals. Also looking at their layout and their use of sticky, it really doesn't change a whole lot, or it's not a huge requirement to be super quick. Now, speed is always important because across all users and all bandwidths, all machines, you do need speed in certain areas. But because they've managed to keep ads in view for a long period of time, they're actually not punished by allowing their bidders to really get their bids in.
Take a bit more time to pass it back,
That's correct. And then, of course, when they don't win, but they're still competitive, which there will be, as we said at the start, highly valuable users, we use our bid caching functionality to ensure that we're getting the most for every auction that we can.
Nice. The other thing, they are lazy loading as well. So we do have quite a bit of ad density, but we're not loading everything at the same time. And there's pretty significant scroll depth across desktop and mobile. I think mobile was potentially infinite scroll. I think you can get to the end of this one. So there is pagination. But these ad units that are further down are getting lazy loaded, so we're not dragging it down too much. Definitely be a balancing act, I'd say, because there's quite a few units in here. But that's definitely a plus.
Well, one thing we always talk about is the volume impact and the value impact.
Yeah.
So in this case, they've definitely gone for a volume approach. You see there's lots of ads, there's refresh. Luckily for these guys, they have a valuable audience. So the value curve is generally going to sit higher up the x-axis.
Right.
So they can get away with it and maintain CPMs.
Yeah.
Obviously, supply and demand, you reduce the amount of ads you have on the page and how many times you refresh, how often you refresh.
Yeah.
You can see the value go up to CPM.
Yeah.
But of course, you want to actually get the most money you can at the page level.
Right.
And by having the pagination there is quite interesting, because my initial thought is they don't have a 970 by 250. So they do well in the vertical, i.e. really tall ads, and they don't have big horizontals, which I think will hurt them a little bit from a value point of view.
Yeah.
But because they put the pagination right to the right, it's very close to advertising content. It's not encroaching, so we're not in any policy areas at this point, but it actually does solve for a problem which a lot of publishers traditionally would put a horizontal just beneath that bar.
Right. Yeah. You still got that unit in view.
And you've got space, right? There might be a reason. They might have telemetry that suggests that the trending stores area
is more valuable,
perhaps, or getting clicks or being interacted with.
Yeah.
But what really would be interesting is to collectively click on the next and previous.
Yeah.
And see, it doesn't make sense to lazy load something horizontal here.
Right.
Or even if you were to do that, do you remove this unit and use that for more content? It's an A/B test to run.
Yeah, definitely. I think even that discussion on the lazy loading value curve, like still something you'd want to experiment with. And if I get my viewability above 70%, am I actually getting that CPM upgrade, that more advertisers are bidding on that inventory, that I actually am making more versus more impressions, slightly lower viewability, but I'm still generating more revenue.
Black Friday comes along and the whole curve flips.
Yes, yeah, which I'd say is pretty extreme for Slickdeals. We're going to look through the mobile website now, what their layout and setup looks like in here. So we'll have a scroll through. First things we can see, they've got some multi-size going on, which is always good and expected. So they've got your kind of standard mobile sizes in there. We've got some lazy loading at the top. It's not super tight, so maybe they've A/B tested, that kind of impressions versus viewability piece that we talked about before. What other things catch your eye on this, Brock, or what things do you think are maybe missing when we're scrolling through here?
To be honest, if you don't mind scrolling right back up to the top,
yeah,
I'm a big proponent of putting your first MREC just beneath the fold.
Right.
So right here we've gone 1, 2, 3 deals, then we have the ad. And in this case, they've got a search bar, menu, hamburger menu, different options, and their top picks.
Yeah.
So for various reasons, I feel like this is the best placement on mobile. Yeah. One, because you've got 300 by 250, which is a stand-up size. Yeah. But publishers always love their 320 by 50 that sits at the top of the screen. Yeah. Usually somewhere around here, right? Yeah. Particularly in this case, if you're running a longer Prebid timeout auction, or even a quite tight Prebid auction, the first thing users are going to do, particularly in this case, is scroll. Yeah. And off they go. Yeah. So you remember, for viewability, half the ad for 1 second on average, it's gone. Like, there's just no point. So I think they made a really good decision with that one. Yeah. Then it's really, as you say, how quick do people actually scroll through here? How does that then change based on bandwidth and device capability? Right. Because they've clearly got a lot of buffer in that case. I'm moving really quick, as you can see. So they're protecting themselves against blanks and popcorn effect. But I reckon with a bit of telemetry and running some experiments, they probably could load a little bit differently, particularly by device type, or by using some different predictors of likelihood to purchase. Yeah. So, like, I'm making this up, but perhaps the amount of page views that people have actually collected in a session on a listing page like this is some sort of evidence of propensity to buy. Yeah. And then for there, maybe you reduce the amount of ads you serve at all. Right. Or maybe you just get rid of them completely. Yeah. You move more into a retail media play.
So prioritizing what's probably a more lucrative revenue stream if you can actually get them to convert and do that affiliate link. Yeah. It's interesting. We can see that they're definitely doing some segmentation on their audience based on what you're looking at. They're layering in targeting as well. And I presume some deals are more lucrative than others too. So my guess is the layout can be dictated by what you're actually looking at. But yeah, you can see the segments that we've been placed in here. And this could probably dictate what you're serving as well. So you've got kind of like propensity to buy, which you're assuming based on browsing and how you're doing that. And then also how valuable is the segment that they're looking at. And you can change your ad strategy based on that to try and maximize what matters. You probably want to collect all data in one place to make sure you're just maximizing the overall outcome, which is revenue. But yeah, I think that's really interesting. Also, just at the top, the benefit is you're not being the ad that pushes everything down, or the LCP, largest contentful paint for core vitals as well. So
exactly,
benefits there.
And I would be shocked if Slickdeals does not have a very large amount of organic traffic.
Yeah, definitely.
Particularly around the holidays, right?
Yeah. The other piece we didn't see was AdSense for search as well, which would be definitely a moneymaker on this site. It obviously gets a super high click-through rate and performs very well on sites that have content, marketplaces, those kind of sites. The two reasons. Maybe they just haven't looked at it. The other one is that you're sending people away to other deals on other places, and it is third-party advertising.
This is
Kind of their own version.
Right. Not I wouldn't say typical, but
Yeah.
you can see that they're trying to capture people
Yeah.
where it matters. So when they first load the page, when they're on the top of their screen, in a way that is shoppable and measurable, right?
Yeah.
Now that doesn't mean that you couldn't do A/B testing a bit further down. Like I think this unit you should maintain.
Yeah.
Like maybe you run an AFS versus
Right.
GAM ad served.
Yeah.
A/B test there, which might offer some value.
Key thing is just making sure the CTR across the products isn't being impacted by it, and that because it does get a pretty high CTR. I think that's the reason it does so well. The last thing on mobile is, didn't show it here now, but when you first open it up, it pushes you towards downloading the app, and we see that strategy pretty often with these types of businesses. They want you to download the app. Maybe talk about why that is the case and maybe what's different with optimizing app as well.
There's plenty that's different with optimizing app. We'll have to do a session on it.
Yeah.
But really, they do have a much richer environment.
Yeah.
Within the apps. So my guess is they have a native iOS, they have a native Android app, and they have teams that are able to really customize the experience and
Right.
be quite shoppable.
Yeah.
The other piece is you have implicit interest. Coming through and looking at Slickdeals just from a Google search is one thing. Downloading the app, signing in as well. They have a good community with people that come back. They can probably get a lot of data out.
Yeah.
Assuming they are allowed to due to privacy laws and the like.
Yeah.
The app's a good way to, one, improve the experience, but two, collect information and make it available and make the user experience a lot better.
Definitely. You've got a captive audience that have downloaded it and are going to come back again and again. So we've talked about the strategy, we've talked about desktop, we've talked about mobile, and throughout it, we've kind of alluded to them having a super valuable audience and how they might use that. And particularly there on mobile, we discussed how we could adjust the layout to that audience and try to maximize the outcome for Slickdeals, which is revenue and getting that user either through affiliates, or if they're less likely to purchase, maybe doing it through ads instead. How else do you think they're using that data? How are they collecting it? What do you think that looks like?
Yeah, I would say they're using an off-the-shelf CDP.
Yeah.
That's a very common approach for a publisher or a business like this. Alternatively, they might be building their own telemetry systems and using some off-the-shelf marketplace categorization products that they can buy. But generally, one strategy could be to go down the retail media approach and use their captivating audience, try and find diamonds in the rough, try and find collections of people that are interested in very specific things, and go to market with that. So, for example, I'm sure if we start navigating, looking at dumbbells and weight plates, that might be putting us into a segment, sporting enthusiast, gym goer, something like that.
Yeah.
And you go to Nike, or you go to a manufacturer of these kind of things and say, hey, I've got 30,000 people, 150,000 people.
Yeah.
And they always come back and they've looked at your products before. Because remember, we've got enough metadata. We know what the product is, who's the manufacturer, where is it sold, what's the price. So you can really start to build a map of the users based on what they're interested in.
Yeah.
And that is gold for a product manufacturer across any of these segments. I would imagine all of them will be very, very excited by the idea of being able to find users that are at the end of their funnel in one spot.
Definitely.
And even probably more importantly, easier to buy. So what I mean by that is the guys at Slickdeal have done a pretty good job of showcasing what their audience is made of and making it easy to purchase. So they're very easy. Come and advertise on Slickdeals. My guess is there's probably a shoppable way to do it.
Yeah.
Oh, here's the segment that I want. Here's my pricing, and off they go. Yeah.
It's almost a platform play where you can self-serve a little bit, moving into something like Facebook, and they've got an audience that they can segment out in a similar way as well. And from my understanding, kind of the value in the CDP or customer data platform is how you're segmenting those audiences and who you're putting them in. And they've got people who can kind of self-identify the audience they want, and then they probably have a direct sales team as well that is out shopping those audiences around and showing people what they have there available.
Yeah, I'd say more of the latter for sure.
Yeah.
So based on what I think the size of the business is.
Right.
But it's probably important to say that, at least on today's tech, you can get really good insights out of cookies.
Yeah.
So why as a marketer, why as an advertiser do I buy this audience?
Yeah.
And sure, good results is an easy way to answer that. But you still have to go out and say, hey, look, here are, deal group X, Y, and Z. You can buy it through this platform.
Yeah.
You're perfect for this use case because you're a manufacturer of these goods, and you got to sell the story and let the details come out when you get a nice campaign report at the end saying how many leads you convert.
You're right, though. It has to perform better than you could with cookies on the open auction. So there is some craft to building those audiences and making sure that they do perform better, showing that back to the advertiser as well, so they see the benefits that are in there.
Yep.
Last piece that we didn't mention was just around the community. So often these sites have a fervent community of like-minded people who love coupons and deals. And this is like generally, I've seen it before on a site of ours that's a fragrance kind of coupon site, forum, everything else. And they've got 10% of these users make up about 50% of total page views because they just are obsessed with being in here and finding deals and talking with each other. Keeping this audience happy is very important to their business as well. And you might look at how do you show a different ad experience to these logged in users or those that are often in the forum to keep them happy versus new users or occasional users that are on the website as well.
Yeah, so you can kind of see here the ad density is less. Yeah. Factually. There's 729 at the top, nice in view, they've left space, there's no popcorn effect. They haven't gone 300 by 600s. I'm sure if we can find some forums and you can see where the people are, they've taken it into consideration because, as you say, a vocal audience will let you know in the forums if your crazy ideas with the ad layout or otherwise is disturbing usability of the site.
Yeah. Okay, so that is Slickdeals. We've looked at a few areas of their business. We went through their layout across mobile and desktop. Overall, a pretty good setup from what we thought. Strong ad density, nice setup, header bidding enabled, and some cool opportunities being taken advantage of. We also looked at their data strategy as well, which you went through there in detail.
You can tell these guys have invested in the programmatic side. They're investing in other ways to make money.
Definitely. They know they've got a valuable audience and they are taking advantage of that. That is our episode 5 of Layout Teardown. I hope it was enjoyable and thank you so much for watching.
Please leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe if you learned something.
And we'll see you in the next one.